All right, now we live. So, how you doing, John? Everybody. So every time you, so everybody knows that if you guys are watching, that when you got this office look in the background, and then every time I look at it, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there's a picture of me in the background right here, right? I'm like, what the frick? And because we're actually in studio doing this today, so we are in house doing it. So I'm in my office, and you're in the sales office that we have set up for podcasting. And then so every time I do this, I see, okay, is it neat? Or am I going to be pissed off today because the sales office looks like garbage, right? That's what I'm thinking. And then I see a picture of myself in the background, and I'm just like, we got to fix that. We got to put something else on that. So, but so this is our second go around, guys. We already have people popping on. John Veverka happens to be a popular guest. And, so last time, it's been a long time. You were kind of one of the early on interviews. So there's quite a bit of life that's gone by since the second time you've been on. Patrick just said hello. He's on here watching you.
Hey, Patrick, how you doing, man?
So, So we're going to get right into why we have you on the show here pretty soon, but I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourself and where your school is. Look at, see, Ashley put a little heart for you. Look at that. Ashley put this heart. Look at that.
Was it black?
Yeah. If she had the choice, is probably what it would be. Right? So,
well, thank you for having me on, sir.
So go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and where your school is, and then we'll hop into some questions.
Yes, sir. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate having me on. So my name is John Veverka. I'm a third-degree black belt in Krav Maga under Mr. Cox. I'm a combat Marine. I'm a Marine combat Marine, combat veteran. My school's up in Santa Clarita. I'm the owner of Citadel Krav Maga. And right at this moment, I'm still recovering, but getting back to training, starting to roll again, starting to strike some pads, starting to strike some bags. Just was up in Moreno Valley with my training partner, Ashley. We were training with the Catch Dog and Foo Dog from the Dog Brothers. So starting to, get back in the swing of things. It's still a struggle, but it was kind of neat. Yes, last night, it's funny. You called me up like a day or two ago or yesterday, and you asked me about, I think it's like Saturday. You talked to me about it, having me on this podcast. And as soon as that happened, all these like phrases started popping up, about like getting back and, get back on the saddle. But it's like, I think I heard a saying, it was, it rains when you want that seed to grow. Right. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, wow. It pours, but despite the amount of rain, it takes a lot of rain for that seed to grow, and I was just thinking about it. I'm going, yep. It's a struggle coming back. It feels like coming back from either being completely out of shape, but a further setback. It's like I got to deal with the muscle atrophy and stuff like that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, sir. But so I'm feeling good, guys. So if some of you guys were wondering, I was like, hey, is he alive? What's going on with him? Yeah, it's like I got a pretty expensive and painful facial peel, and then a body scrub. So the docs at Grossman Burn Center took care of me, and the VA took care of me. So I was good.
Yeah, they did. They definitely took care of you for sure. So we had this. The reason I had you on, because there's a lot of things that went on with your sickness, right? So some of us, even though it was on our mind every day, being sick, another thing on our mind was to keep that school afloat. You know what I mean? And because how long were you been in business now when this hit?
So I officially opened the doors. I started the business in 2018 to get everything off the ground. And then 2019, the city kind of gave us the pass in August. So we did a grand opening in 2019. Mm-hmm. And then obviously, the pandemic hit right when the school was getting some momentum. And so that was tough.
Yeah, this is a tough, martial arts schools in general is a tough environment anyway, and as many as that got closed down over the pandemic, we were just not going to allow that to be part of the equation of you being sick. You know what I mean? So
Yes, sir.
I think that we did well as far as jumping aboard and making sure everybody comes together and to help. And it was great to see, by the way, because I don't know if we went through the pandemic together, trying to keep our schools together there. And that was even harder. That was harder than getting people to come and help teach, because I don't know if what you've experienced in the shorter time you've been open, but I can tell you what I experienced in the pandemic is people that been with me for many, many, many years. I never even seen their face to help out during the pandemic. These are folks that I spent a lifetime helping. And then when the pandemic hit, there was no diving in. It was this little tiny tribe and this very core students that kept the Chatsworth doors and Simi Valley open, right? Small core
Yep.
of people that were selfless in teaching and getting online and continuing on, and this selfless student base that stuck with us the entire time. Can't tell you how many people just up and quit. We'll see you when we see you. And then it's coming back, just like we said, right? We said this is not going to be an everyday. At some point, even when you're getting screamed at by little millennials in Starbucks about put your mask on, put your mask on.
Oh yeah.
I remember looking at them going, this is a very short-lived power thing that you have coming, bro. Okay. And because we're going to come back, and we're going to come back stronger. And that's just kind of, it's kind of how I think that's just kind of how Americans are built anyway. Even though you see a lot of, we hear a lot of, I don't know, what's the word, kind of, almost us being controlled at a certain point, right?
Yep.
We all felt that. And, but you're not going to control us for long, because pretty soon we're going to wake up, and when you poke the bear, or as you guys say, when you poke the polar bear, if you know, you know. So it gets to go. So I don't know if you've experienced that same thing when it came to your school, but keeping your school afloat with instructors was a lot easier than dealing with a pandemic. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
So.
we were riding the tail of the pandemic. It's of course it's magically gone, and it's kind of like just hanging out or whatever. I'm like, Jesus, man, we could have done that many months ago. But anyways, it was tough, sitting on the in the hospital bed and kind of hearing about like who's taking classes, or who's teaching classes and stuff. And yeah, what's one funny thing is I was never worried. For some strange reason, maybe it's the trust in the organization and the guys that I know that were teaching, and Giselle running all the business, and then Ashley helping out with the coordination. You get to really know who's got your back,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And outside the Marine Corps, I often said this about this organization. It's very hard to find the camaraderie in the military, outside the military. It's very hard to find the camaraderie outside the Marine Corps. I'm sure Rangers say the same thing. Special operations guys say the same thing. But, you kind of keep tabs and hanging out. And, thanks to the guys that were that I served with also. I know you guys chipped in on that. And so thank you guys. I appreciate that too. All my Marine brothers. But yeah, it's the camaraderie is there. You see it, military, law enforcement, you see it in the firefighters, and you told me quite a bit about how firefighters take care of each other. And I've seen it from a third party, I was like, wow, man, these guys really take care of each other. It's the same thing here. You don't see that in too many organizations in martial arts. I mean, yeah, you sweat, you bleed on the mat, and you get some small groups, but, the outpouring support from not just the instructors, but the students in the organization,
Right. Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. There was a donation based campaign going on, and I was just, I was taken back, man. There were times in the hospital where I was bawling because I didn't think I deserved the support or help that I was getting. And I'm like, I had to really sit down and I think I can't remember who I was talking to because I was still kind of probably loopy. They were telling me like, slow down for a second. You got to think about what you've done for other people. And I'm like, I guess that's not the way I am. I don't expect anything back, because I enjoy teaching. I enjoy helping people change their lives because, someone's done it for me before,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that I think you hit on something very good. Students, our student base is kind of our lifeblood. All right, without those, and without the parents that bring the kids, as much as it's a struggle, I tell everybody like this: a martial arts school, you see it in the church, also you see it in martial arts schools. There is definitely a family dynamic, right? And so you have to deal with a lot of personalities, and you got to deal with a lot of different leaderships. But in the end, we might bicker inside, but we can pick on each other, but no one will pick on us. That type of thing.
That's right. Yeah,
we got
brothers.
We got some people talking smack already.
That's how it is, right?
Here we go. Let's see what we got.
Oh, we got Joe, and
And
we got my buddy.
here's
James.
James.
Yeah, went to high school together. Hey, James, what's up, man?
He says, you got me through ROTC and spring camp. This guy's always been an impact on whatever he's involved with. See how nice that is? And then we'd have Joe. Now we have Joe. You're still ugly. Looking forward to you coming out to Pooler this year. So, yeah. Joe, just so you know, it has been put on the books. These guys took me out for my birthday the other night. And believe it or not, Giselle and John are coming to the November testing. We will be out there for a week together. Kat and I are coming, and Giselle and John are coming in November to Pooler. So he's coming. So get ready. You can talk smack right to his face then.
That's right.
So
we can do some room clearing.
Well, you can't there because only Chatsworth has a kill house. The massive school in Pooler does not have a kill house, so there is no clearing of rooms because there's only one big giant room.
They got time. I'm sure. I'm sure they got time to build one.
So that's good. It's so that's been a testament on what it is. So I wanted to jump into a little bit about, because everybody knew that you had gotten sick, right? And then when it went down, because this happened before, right? You took about a week off, and right, yeah, a little, a little, and of course it's probably nerve wracking. That's it's an actual autoimmune disease, so it's. Mm-hmm. So with COVID around, you're probably like, what the heck? But you got COVID too and still came out of it, right? Yes, and so you had this happen once before, and it was, it was a week or 10 days out. But this one was even a little bit, it was a little bit more intense for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was strange, and it's crazy because when I look at it, I was at the coming off of a training cycle with the tournament, with the Jujitsu tournament, and I was in pretty good condition, so I often wonder, I'm like, man, what would I have done? What would have happened to me? What would have been the same if I wasn't in peak condition, but it was so bizarre, I don't even remember. I remember getting to the VA, and then my wife I had a fever, and I told her, it's like, hey, it's 103. If it doesn't go away in half an hour, take me back to the VA, because I already previously went, and they gave me some ibuprofen to kind of keep the fever down, and it was only at 101 at the time, and I was like, okay, cool, but then I guess my wife was saying I was hallucinating. I was just like talking to somebody about schools. See, so even understand, guys, even though I was out of it, I was still concerned about who had classes and who was teaching and where everything was learning, because I was like, we got class tonight, right? And my wife's like looking at me like, who's he talking to? And then I guess the nurse or the doctor was like, this guy's got to go in like now. And that's when I lost consciousness, I guess. And I was just functioning, but delirious, I guess. So
yeah, it's I remember now. I remember one of our people that's I think Danny Hazan might be listening right now from Israel.
Hey, sir, how you doing?
If he's on there, we say hi to you, Danny. Also hear this Daniela Roman right here. Yeah, you've never met her, but these are my coaches in the book that I'm writing. Her husband's a Marine, Just thought I'd let you know
Excellent.
that.
Semper Fi.
All
Awesome,
right.
man. I love it.
This is
Yeah.
Joe's wife. That's the most VA answer ever. Ibuprofen.
Yep. That's this military stuff right there. Motrin, change your socks, drink some water, you're good to go. That's it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's
Doug.
not true. That's true. So, yeah, I mean, you can see even when we did this last minute, John. You know, you have a great following. We had a lot of people that were looking forward to having this second talk. You bring something to the table that everybody enjoys, you know, and not to mention just your service, but in general, just what you bring to the table is people love to hear your stories and everything else. So I'll give you my thoughts. So when I first saw you, you know, when I was called to come in, and you know, we were lucky to even get to go and see you. Okay, I was like,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, all the protocols and them not letting you in, but for some reason, we had a Vax card. If you really, you know, whatever, or whatever, a negative whatever, then they let you in, right? So, so when I got up there, you know, they had told me that, hey, you're hallucinating a little bit and stuff like this. Now, people don't really realize our relationship. Okay, it's more than just a student type relationship. I mean, we have spent countless hours on the mat together as workout partners. You know what I mean? Or coming to my house and lifting. Well, I lift. You lift a little bit, but
I'm getting back there. I'm getting back
okay.
there. Little tiny weights. Yeah.
So, you know, I got weights for all from the kids on up, bro. From kids, Marines to myself, so it's all good.
Oh, man.
Okay, and so, you know, people don't really realize how tight we were in having a workout partner. I mean, you remember before you came around, I had Fred, right? Before Fred moved to Texas, I had a workout partner, and those are important because, you know, I'm older and I don't really want to be injured at the same time. And I want to go hard, but I'm not wanting to put each other in the hospital. My ego's not that well. My ego is big, but it's not that big that I want to be injured. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And so we worked well together. And so when I first saw you, I mean, your wife was like, you know, he may not recognize or whatever. And I remember you were so swollen in the face. And I was there. Now, I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you remember me being there the first night or not. Now, when I popped in the room and you heard my voice, you automatically, just out of your mouth, is yes, sir. I'm saying, hey, John, hey, it's Mr. Cox. I'm here. And yes, sir. And you doing okay? Do you need anything? No, sir. And you're just going yes or no, sir, to me, probably to my voice. But these guys, dude, were the one guy. He was trying to get a needle in you. Okay. I don't know if you remember this or not.
No, I don't.
You don't know this story, do you? I haven't told you this, have I?
No.
I was watching him and I wanted to so right cross him in the face so bad. Okay. I'm like, bro, and you can see he's trying to stick a needle in between your fingers.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to do all this stuff because he can't get it. Right. Now, I was there and he stuck you 6 times. Right. And I can see you winch and I can see you winching. So obviously you felt pain. You know, you may not remember it now, but obviously you felt pain. And they had asked on who you were. Right. And I said, well, he's a combat Marine, guys. I said, he can take a lot, but you guys are picking him like, you know, like he's a pincushion, for crying out loud. I said, do you have anybody that's better at this? Or what?
Jeez.
And so they brought in another person and they had the same thing. Now, people don't really realize your skin was so raw, right? And so tender. And I was like, man, I was so pissed off, man. I just said, yo, guys, why don't you give it a break here? Let them have a break. And then you told me, hey, I'm cold, Mr. Cox. And I said, can we get the man a blanket? What, you know, let's go. But I remember that one guy for real. And then when he goes like this, he goes, oh, he's a Marine. Well, he's tough enough to take this. And I'm thinking, I said, once you let me, I said, I don't know how to draw any blood. Why don't you let me do that to you 6 or 7 times and see how you like it? You know what I mean? I'll never forget it. I was like, And it was, I was taken back by that because we were really up in the air about how sick you really were.
Yeah.
I mean, it did not look good at all, right? I was like, so the drive away was like, mm, I had the same, thing with my nephew on the
Mm.
first go around, but I didn't have a worry for my nephew. I'm still. We'll talk about that in a minute, but when I left you, I said I don't know how long it's going to take, but somehow this is going to be used as a catalyst somewhere else. He's going to, uh, he's going to show how to come out of something. So that was my first experience with you. I don't know if I ever told you the story. I hadn't brought it up to you before. We can only be in by ourselves, and I just remember going, you know, and
Yeah.
you guys know I'm kind of quiet. Once I'm in that mode, I'm kind of quiet because I'm like it's out of my wheelhouse. There's nothing I can do, and so I don't like not being in control. It's one of my things, and so that was hard for me. But I always wondered. I said, "Do you remember me being there that night?" But you had to hear my voice, so something automatically was coming on because the first night you were there. Did they give you any drugs, or what did they do for you at that night? That night.
Uh, I mean, I have no idea, to be honest. Still to this day, like I get bits and pieces of information from my wife, from Ashley, from even other people. Like Clyde was telling me bits and pieces of information when he visited me. You know, Sergio, like if he would say stuff like because we talked like after Christmas, um, or before Christmas, and so I'm getting bits and pieces of information and putting the full story together. But I think they had me loaded up on a lot of medicine. It surprised me when I was fully awake what kind of stuff there. I'm like looking at the signs. I'm like, fentanyl? What?
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
saw that.
I'm like, what? And I'm hearing all these stories about like police officers getting in touch with it and then like getting knocked. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, what am I on? How bad
Yeah.
is this? Really? You know? But I didn't even know what it was like. My wife has pictures and stuff like that. And so everything was I was like blistered up. She's like, it looked like someone took a blowtorch to you. And I was like, really? And so she sent me picture or she showed me picture. She wasn't sure if I was ready to see him or not. So it was maybe about a couple months afterwards.
Right.
Maybe like February, March. I mean, it's the end of March now. So maybe like late February. So she was telling me, you looked like you were in pain. She's like, that's when I lost it. And I was like, what? I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. She's like, they scraped everything off your face and your body. I was like, they scraped? And she's like, that's how it was explained to me. They had to remove all the infected skin. And so all the subdermal, the dermal layers, and I don't know how deep they went, but I didn't even know I was bandaged up like a mummy. I thought in my head for the whole entire time I was normal. Like I had my, muscles, everything was okay. And then I was bandaged up. So the bandages, kind of threw me off. I knew my skin was kind of jacked up, my back and my arms, because everything hurt. It was painful. It was a lot of, even though I was on all those medications, it was painful to lift certain things or do certain things. Like motions like this would hurt. And she was telling me all these things that they were asking me to do, and like if I had to roll over, and when I was awake. But when I was out, I was so mummified. I guess you kept on calling. You said I would look like a mummy, right?
Right. Well, first
And
you look like Freddy Krueger, and
there
then
you
you
go.
look like the mummy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was. Yeah, I didn't even know how bad I was until I think someone brought me my cell phone, and it was Ashley. She brought me my cell phone and like started changing over the information. And so I'm kind of in my head, I'm going, how bad am I right now? So I took a picture of it, and I was like, oh, I don't look too. I mean, like I look gross, but I'm like, okay, cool, right? But when they brought me up to recovery, they undid my dressings, and I looked like Dobby from Harry Potter. I was like, what the hell? Because I was so skinny. I was 163 pounds when I left the hospital. Everyone who knows me and trains with me knows I usually walk around 200 pounds to 210 pounds. And so it was a struggle, man. I was like, wow, I have some work to do, and I tried getting up and I tried doing push-ups, and the nurses were like, what are you doing? Get back in bed. I was like, I got to get back to training. They're like, you need a rest and you need to eat food. And I was like, well, that sucks. And the occupational therapist was cool though. She was like this. old school hardcore like Aikido lady, and she was like, you need to do this and this. She's like, you want to get back to training? She's like, you need to do, like, the goal was to touch the ceiling, right? And I'm like, okay, this is gonna take some work. And so it was cool. She was like, it was kind of like I had some gas in my tank when she told me. She was like, you know, most patients, it would take them about 2 to 3 weeks to do what you just did in 3 days. And I'm like, awesome, I'm on my way. I was not on my way. I was like, I got home and everything like that, and got one of those assault bikes. Right, we picked one up from like Facebook Marketplace, and I got on that thing. After about 5 minutes, I'm like, this ain't happening right now. I was like, I'm sweating for the first time in like 2 months. I'm like, nope.
Right.
And you know, it's still getting to be that way. I just started doing deadlifts, but man, it was crazy coming from like and the amount of time I went from normal to, like, I guess Freddy Krueger was a couple days.
Right. Well, people may not know. I think it was only 2 weeks, right, John, that you had competed and won a jujitsu tournament, your very first jujitsu tournament. You took gold in it, I think 2 weeks before this all went down.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And there were some I mean, these guys were like tough, you know, big dudes. And I mean, I was, the training I had with you guys and Sergio, just, it was worth the time. Every second of it was worth it, because these guys, I mean, my hands were just dead. You know, I'm going, wow, this is no joke at all. I mean, there's some tough things I did in my life, but that was one of them. And I'm like, this is awesome and amazing. But man,
Right.
that
So
recovery, yeah.
correct. I think that's one of the things on the podcast. Telling students, we tell the students all the time about mindset and how important it is. Not the win and lose, but the mindset of win. You know what I mean? Whether we win or lose is one thing, but if our mindset is play to win, play not to lose, then it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing in health. We've had this discussion before about my own health when you were just asking me, because it mentally it takes a toll, right? I cannot tell you, John, how many people. I wouldn't bring it to you very often myself. I'm not sure if Giselle did or not, but if your wife did or not. That's nice, Patrick. He said, I felt John's winning mindset on Friday. Dude still rolls like a demon.
Thanks, man.
So, I can't tell you how many people were like, I don't know if John's going to do it, or how's he going to get through this, or this and that. And I just said that part of it, for me, I was impatient, right? Because I'm like, I'd ask Ashley, okay, what's the deal with John? I mean, are you guys pushing him to get his ass up or not? Because if not, I'm sending freaking Rod and Z over there to get his ass up and work. And you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, but she said, I mean, you pushed along to what it was, right? I mean, people don't really know, John, your real struggle. This is everybody that knows you knows what a beast you are, but you had trouble doing one push-up. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
When you called me.
I trembled. I couldn't even, I got down and collapsed, and I was like, oh man, I got to get back up. I was like, well, here we go. And I was like, I couldn't get back up. And I'm like, wow, this is, in my head at the time, I'm like, it crushed me mentally. I was like, really? One push-up? And I was like, can I even do assisted push-up, getting my knees there? And I'm like, can I even do that? And I could. And I was like, all right, at least I can do that, But it's crazy. It's such a small world. And who my surgical doctor was, I didn't know he was a Krav Maga black belt and worldwide. And I was like, well, I'll talk about that in a second. The struggle leading up to that was getting the ventilator out of my mouth, right? And I remember
I'm not sure people knew. How long were you were intubated with a ventilator to assist you in breathing? I remember the day they said they were going to do that. Right now, everybody knows my girl. That's what she does for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is vent patients and stuff like that. And she was so instrumental to helping me with, hey man, because every time you hear that somebody's on a ventilator, you think it's you just think it's a downward spiral of
Yeah,
you're coming out. So how long were you on the vent for?
a few weeks. I mean, maybe a couple weeks, if that. From December 7th, I was admitted, so maybe a couple days after that, I believe so. And then I came off, so maybe a week or two, I would say, on a ventilator. And that's
Yeah, I know.
where a lot of the decline happened, like respiratory failure, kidney failure, liver failure, swelling of the brain with fluids. It was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, see, the ventilator is not always your best friend, and
Yeah.
so that because I kept asking every day, when does he get off this thing? When does he get off this thing? I think they used the vent on you to manage pain. Isn't that what they did? Kept you kind of sedated so that they could work on your skin. Is that kind of what it was?
I think it was just like because I guess I wasn't breathing on my own, or I was breathing, but I didn't have enough oxygen levels. So the oxygen level was low on me. And so they were using it to assist, obviously. But yeah, it was so they can keep me breathing while they're working on me, or when they had to leave me alone, that I wouldn't just stop breathing, in my sleep or something like that. But yeah, the crazy part was when they took it out of me. I thought I was gonna like go to sleep and they were gonna do it, and or like they were gonna put me under and then do it. No, they were like, I had an awesome nurse named Kristen, and she was like, she's like the sweetest nurse I've ever met, and she was like, do you want the ventilator out? Because I was awake, and she was like, wow, this guy's like really awake. She's like, would you like to get it out? And I was like, because I couldn't speak, I was like, and she was like, okay, okay. So she goes and talks to the doctor. Doctor comes back and he's like, hey bud, how you doing? I was like, thumbs up. And he goes, okay. He's like, do you want the ventilator out? And I was like, 2 thumbs up. And he was like, okay, well. And then he looked at Kristen, and Kristen was like, can we go do it today? And he was, well, I don't see why not. He's like, go ahead and get it out. And all of a sudden they told me to, like, they were prepping me, and then this guy came in and he wanted to see what it was like with I guess it's like a nebulizer, but it was like a face mask as opposed to like the little mouth instrument or whatever they use afterwards.
Right.
Because I guess I had the what do you call it, the xenograph on my face, repairing my face. And so yeah, they turned me over to my side, and I was like, holy crap, this is like a scene from Aliens, because they're like pulling this thing out of my throat, and there was a bucket, and it was in case I had to chuck. And I was like, wow, this is nuts. And I don't they're like, on 3, 2, 1, you're gonna breathe out. And I was like, what? And they were like, 3, 2, 1. I was like, huh. And just ripped it all out. And I was like, wow, this is nuts. Crazy. But I was like, thank God, because I was as soon as I was like, cool. But I tried to talk, and I was like, and it was like a whisper. But in my head, I'm like,
Right.
why can't you guys hear me? And I was like, and Kristen's like, how's everything going? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and she was like, what? Like, ears up. And I was like, everything's fine. And she's like, is there anything I can get you? And I was like, ice chips. And she was like, okay, let me go get the approval from the doctor. And she got it approved. And I was eating ice chips, and my wife didn't know that they took it out of me. And I was already eating ice chips. So when she came in, she was like, what? Holy crap, this is amazing. And I was like, yeah. And then I scared her again when they got me to start walking, because that guy came in. I guess another patient came in, and he looked the same way I did, because it was a burn unit. And she came in, and she was so furious because she thought I was going back under and things were getting worse again. So she was freaking out. And there I am scooting on this little walker, and I'm like, hey, what's up, babe? And she's like, what? You're walking? And I'm like, yeah, I'm walking. What's up? And I'm like, she's like, where are you going? I was like, to the bathroom. I was like, I gotta go. They told me, they're like, where do you want to go with this walker? I said, well, objective number 1 is to go number 2. And they're like, what? And I was like, I gotta go. I was like, we gotta go, guys. And so I was trying to be super lighthearted in my head, because I know those guys also deal with, guys who just I don't know, that the fight mindset. This is where I'm getting to next, is the fight mindset is crazy. What I've done in the Marines is one thing, and then being able to continue it with Krav Maga, because everyone who's ever taken a Krav Maga test knows it ain't easy. It's never easy. It should never be easy, right? Because it wouldn't be a
Right.
test. And I hear all these other patients, they don't want to take the tube out yet because they're worried about the pain. But they can't explain themselves, but they're just not ready for it, or they'll hold on to it, and they're not ready to walk yet, or they're very the mental spiral is nuts. And I'm just like, nope, got to stay on my feet, got to keep doing this, got to keep pushing. And I'm a religious man, so God, I'm always a huge believer in that God builds us up, and he tests us to keep us going that way, because everyone knows life ain't fair, right? And we're tested that way. And so I'm like, wow, all these things in my head. I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, all these things in my life that have ever happened probably like culminated to this point where I have to beat this. And so even to the man, when they took the dressings off at one point, it did hurt. And I'm laying on this hydro table, this metal table, and it's freezing cold. I'm just shivering. And in my head, I'm just like, just keep going. It's like a tattoo. You just got to keep going past it. And the doctor comes in. He's like, hey, how's everything going, buddy? And I'm like, great, I'm getting this dressing off. And he's like, you don't complain at all, do you? I'm like, talk to my wife. I was like, I'm a big baby. I just don't want to be here as much. And I know if I complain and like stop the process, I'm going to be here longer. And he was like, fair enough. But that guy, he's cool. He's he was telling me, I go, I really think that my physical conditioning contributed to my healing. And I still had no idea what I was talking about because I never really understood what happened to me. And he goes, no. He goes, or he didn't say no. He was just like, maybe. He goes, but more than likely, he's like, I'd have to say 100%. Actually, he goes, it's your mindset. Whatever your mental game is up here right now, he goes, that's what's saving you. He goes, that's what's pushing you. He's like, it's probably why you're still alive. And I was like, taken back. I didn't fully understand it until they took the dressings off. And I'm like, now I understand why he was saying that,
Mm-hmm.
and we hear it all the time. We hear it in Krav Maga. We hear it from you. We hear it from Sergio. I hear it from Crafty Dog. Like, all the mental game is important. You can't be a warrior physically and not be a warrior mentally.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I think the thing about God that we talked about, right? We we ask for wisdom or we ask for patience, and it's not like we automatically get that. What we get when you ask prayers like that, you better get ready to be tested because that's
Yep.
exactly what's coming your way. Oh, you want to have more patience? Let me drop this into your life and see how that teaches you patience. Right.
Yep.
And so, that was when I was sick, that was my main. I told you the other night that it was a 6-month process of me to get my mental game right because my fear came that I was going to have a stroke. Every time something happened, I was like, I'm going to have a stroke, man. I'm going to have a stroke. When I had those blood clots, man, I was asking God all the time, don't let me have a stroke. Just take me home. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I was like that for 6 months. And it was the mindset that changed everything. It changed my health. It changed my weight loss. It changed my journey. It changed everything because there was one night, it was a switch. It was a light switch. I was laying there in bed and I'm like, okay, I'm the teacher and I'm the leader of all these schools. I talk about mindset and stuff like that. And here I am laying here, worried about every little thing that's coming my way. And, part of it was, I feel like I have responsibilities too. I have adult kids that still aren't out of the house yet and just now getting off on life. And, a single dad, they rely a lot on me. This is all the stuff that I was saying to myself. And then it was a light switch that came on. And I'm sure, everybody has to know. I think that's another thing, John, to say, even though, they look at you now and you're like, wow, that guy's, where am I? There's no way that you don't have doubt all the time when you're laying there going, what in the world is going on? And it's a struggle and a push to get past the mental, the mental game of losing health, right? That's why you can't, there's two things, right? You can't buy health, right?
Right.
And you can't buy time. So, you want to try and get your health as healthy as you can, and time is something that you can't buy and you can never get it back. You can spend it. You got to spend it in the right place, but you ain't ever getting it back, and it's free.
Yeah.
All right. And so I think that I think that's something else that people should know from you, where you feel that there was times that uh, were there times that you had doubt and stuff like that. So let's get to that part of it and how you process that.
Yeah. So when I was still in the recovery unit, so they moved me up from burn center up to the recovery unit. I started that process where I was like, what am I doing with my life? I know I own a school and I train guys to, be the best versions of themselves, be able to analyze a threat. And I'm going, what am I doing for my family? Like my wife, what am I doing for my parents? What am I doing for other people that, I don't get to spend time with these people because I'm so involved in the business side and the training side of things. And I'm like, I've got to start looking at different things. It gave me a different perspective, and more of a respect of the time I have here on this earth, and, and it's so funny because I mean, just like you and I've had more near death life experiences, than I can probably count on my hand. But this one was like, I guess the closest I've ever been. I guess I would say, I was really pushing the envelope before, being in Iraq, and then, as a kid, being a motorcycle accident, and then, it was a time I got caught in an undertow, and I'm like, none of those really affected me the way that this one did, and maybe it's because I got to live a lot of my life like a crazy guy, you know what I mean, and then kind of like at this point there was nothing I could do, and so I'm like, okay, so what do I need to change? What do I need to do? Take an actual vacation, enjoy a little bit of life.
Hmm.
And those things started to change me, right? But at the same time, I'm kind of like struggling with, like you said, the doubts, right? Um, am I going to be the same? Can I do the same things before that I could do now? Um, I get a headache and I'm like, oh man, is this happening again?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
And or like it was like a pounding headache, like a migraine or something like that, which I've had before from previous head injuries. And I'm like, man, it starts to mess with your head, and you have to be able to pull yourself out. As much as it's good to have a support group, you have to train yourself to do that, where it's like, shut up. You
Right.
have to tell that inner you know
Your
sissy
bitch
to.
voice.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So we can say that. So, yeah, you
Mhm.
gotta tell the inner bitch to shut up, because if they don't, if you go down that path, it's gonna get worse, right? And then you
Mhm.
start believing in it. And I tell this to my kids all the time. I'm like, you need to believe in yourselves as much as I believe in you guys. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, all these things that I tell people, all these times that, when it sucks, what are you gonna do? And I'm going, well, now I'm in this position. So what are you gonna do, John? Like, you gonna do this right or what? And so, there's times where I'm on the mat, I'm teaching, and some of my students, I told them, I was like, hey guys, I'm still getting in the swing of things, so bear with me. And, I appreciate your patience, having to teach jujitsu, or like, like not jujitsu, but like grappling, or, anything else, or, like Krav, it's like, oh my God, not touching anybody, like to do stuff is,
Right.
it messes with you, dude, having to like like help other students without like having to like demonstrate it. And I'm going, this is hard. This is difficult. And I used to come home at night, this last couple months, like mid-February, I was starting to do it again. And I drive home and I'm going, this is, I don't want to do this anymore, where I'm like having to have a hands-off approach. And I said, one day I was just like, screw it. Whatever happens, happens. And I had to like just get in there and start hitting stuff, and start to like shake the rust off, And it was difficult. Man, boy, it was difficult. And it still is, and this is where I'm like, you have to keep pushing,
Yeah.
you have to beat your doubts. Because if you don't, they just sit in the back of your head and they add up, and then you start to believe this crap that you're no good. And, I I don't want that. So I was like, okay, one thing at a time. And so, um, I understood that every time I had a doubt, I had to face that obstacle right away. I couldn't stow it away, and then fight it later. I had to beat it right away, because
Mhm.
I knew that there was gonna be another thing coming. and another thing coming and another thing coming until I'm normal again. So I know I'm still in this fight. I know I'm still having to do that. So, if you guys are out there, whoever's out there facing stuff or you're coming back from an injury, I may not know what that injury is like, but I know what it's like when you're doing mental gymnastics, right? And you got to stick that landing and you got to get past it, because if you keep doing it, you're just going to talk yourself out of things, or you're going to believe the crap you're telling yourself,
Yeah, I find myself, well, we talked about that in the parking lot here the other night when I was telling you about, because you had asked me how long it was for me, this mental mindset for me. And when I kind of switched, I remember telling myself, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk myself into getting sick. Is
Yeah,
exactly what's going to
exactly.
happen.
Yep.
Okay. And I remember that mentally, because when you're laying down by yourself and your thoughts and nobody else is around, and that's when the real thought process is coming of, I remember that epiphany that I had. I said, I'm not doing this tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to change. And you're right about having a great support system, because you need the support system when you're down.
You do.
But when it all comes down to it, man, it's you against you, and that's it.
That's right.
Okay, all the support in the world is not going to mentally say, "Okay, I need to change this." I see it quite often everywhere, especially today, right?
Yeah.
I've even heard this energy. My kids in therapy and my da da da, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just have a mindset of, are you teaching these kids in therapy how to have a mindset of getting over problems? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what? Or what are we doing today? And I remember that vividly, saying, I keep so much worrying about this is going to be the thing that's going to be, that I am going to talk myself into being sick. And then I'm going to talk myself into, not, I even saw it through COVID. When people got COVID, they freaked out right out of the gate. I remember when I tested positive, I'm like, well, now I got it. And let's do all this stuff.
Yeah.
I did everything the government said not to do. So, and then I was better. So I don't know, weird, but so I think that mindset is probably something that, right. It doesn't really matter, right? If you have addictions or whatever,
Yeah.
and you go to meetings because you need the camaraderie of, hey, this guy's going to say anything. Hey, you can do it, and you have that little push. But ultimately, it's you. You either got to make the decision to change, or you're not going to make the decision to change, and that is on you at some point. And those mental gymnastics continually are all the time, right?
Yep.
And so, I remember seeing you in bandages. Yeah, you did look like a mummy. You know what I mean? I was like,
That I don't think I've ever told you. So there was a tough night. There was a really tough night, and they put me on a ton of drugs. I was just like, I could feel it. And this is where we're going to, where it's like, it's like you do need your support system, but at the same time, you have to face these things alone sometimes. And and you have to face it, guys. You really have to face it. You can't. It's like fighting somebody. You can't just close your eyes. They ain't gonna go away. That problem's not gonna go away. So I'm sitting there in my bed, and all of a sudden, I'm starting to hallucinate things, right? And I'm going, oh no, this is gnarly. And I think you came there that day, and it was like you kind of left in the evening, and then my wife was the last one to leave. I think Kendrick came by. If you guys don't know who Kendrick is, he's a cool dude. He trains under Mr. Cox. He's a former scout sniper and turned pastor, so a real cool guy. But so he left, and then all of a sudden I get this weird hallucination. It's like probably 1, 2 in the morning, and I'm going, what is going on? And I see your face, and it's like half you, half the Hulk. And I'm going, oh, I'm tripping out. I was like, this is bad. I was like, what's going on? I didn't like how I felt. And I just started seeing all sorts of stuff. And I mean, throughout the whole time I was there was moments like that. And I'm like, I don't like the way this is. I guess my sister came to visit me, and everything looked gold. And I'm like, this is bad. I was like, I got to get out of this place. And it's weird because you had to kind of fight. It's like you have to kind of fight. It's like a nightmare. No one likes to be in a nightmare, and everyone wants to wake up. And there's some nightmares you just can't wake up from, and you just have to ride it out. And I think that's what it's like. Those the mental fight. You have to ride it out. You can't throw your arms up and give up, because all you're gonna do is you're gonna stay in that bottom of that pit. You got to fight. You got to climb your way out. You got to get out of that thing. You have to face it, guys. I can't. People can hold your hand through it, but there are going to be moments where they have to take a step back and handle their own lives. You can't falter. You have to start trying to fight to stand up. I mean, you look at all these success stories. I mean, geez, David Goggins is one of those guys where you're like, yep, I don't know what that's like, but hopefully if I ever have to face, and I'm like, okay, I've had my own story now where you have to fight back from it. Everyone's got their story,
Yeah, and everybody faces their problems, and as big as our problems are to us personally, those problems are, even they may not seem to be as challenging to us, but in their minds, it's something that is crippling for them. So, and pushing people past that breaking point. And then I don't know how many times you've seen it. I've told everybody, my biggest push from listening to people make excuses is when I first did 75 hard.
Mm-hmm.
First time I did it. And then that freaking Jocko book, Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, and those two things were super. And then I was even more like militant on it. I just said, if you give me one excuse, I just don't want to hear it. Okay. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You either want an excuse or you want to get past it. One of the two is going to be. So what's, do you want somebody to have a pity for you and pat you on the back and say, I'm here for you, it's all good, and you want that every freaking day? Or do you want to take some ownership on some of the bullshit that you've just done and move past it? I mean, which way are we going to go? And, and so it almost seems like I'm being a jerk sometimes, right, about it, because I just don't. What, right? Watching Sergio, remember Sergio pops his arm or tears his freaking bicep up, right?
Yeah.
Did he take any time off work as a police officer? Nope. Did he come in 2 weeks later and roll with all of us with one arm?
Yep.
Which gave everybody, I watched this with him, right? And I watched everybody that had injuries, and he pushed my son, Michael, because Michael had a cast on. He's like, so what? You get on the mat.
Yep.
So what? You have a cast on. And I was watching Michael roll with him this week again. He stuck Michael's arm inside his belt so he couldn't move it. And Michael had to roll one-armed, and he made watching his leadership. I told him this privately. I said, you pushed everybody to. It's hard to have any excuses when you say, "Oh, I'm hurt here and I'm hurt here." Yet, Sergio's got a torn bicep and he's out here. And not only is he rolling with us, he's kicking our ass on top of it, dude. It's like, how bad do we suck? Okay, I remember that roll. I'm like, what the frick is going on here, man? Okay, right? I mean, he is on a different level because he's injured, so he's given 0 inches to what he does because he's protecting himself now.
Yep.
And I remember that roll going, God, we suck. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, and you know what? It's something I've started to understand. There's a lot I learned from that guy. In terms of not just jiu-jitsu, but even a leader. I was telling, I think Ashley and I were training, we were doing dog row stuff or something, and I was like, it's crazy. Or no, we were talking about jiu-jitsu, like no-gi stuff, and I was like, man, what was crazy was like, because I got my ass kicked during my no-gi matches. I did really well in my gi matches, but then I got my ass kicked. There's certain things I can do, like perform like the takedowns that I've been training to do for even years, and those guys they just had a better game that day. And, I was expecting this disappointment, and Sergio's like, what happened? Like, because he had to go from another match, and he was like, what's that? What's up? What's that? What happened? Fill me in. So I told him, I was like, I couldn't take him down, and it resulted in a point loss. And he was like, okay. Like, I was like, really? Like, no ass chewing, no nothing. And he was like, because he knew it was not the time for it, right? And he knew that I had another match going, and I learned to become a more compassionate leader from that. I'm going, okay. I learned that in the Marines also, where it's like, you side counsel people. You don't have to counsel in front of everybody. I learned the hard way on that one, but again, it's like, oh, there's another application for it, martial arts. There's another application for it, life counseling, and when he did that, I'm going, wow, I learned something huge that day, and it was really cool. And so, guys, if you're out there and you guys are trained in martial arts or even weightlifting or whatever athletic event you're doing or sport you're doing, your coaches aren't trying to push you because they're trying to. I mean, there are some jerks out there, but they're pushing you because they've either been there, they've known the pain you're going through, the struggle you're going through, and the frustration you're going through. They can see it on your face. Don't give them the negative feedback, like, I'm doing it, I'm doing this and that, I got it. Just know that they want to see the best version of you, and they know you need a little bit of a push and a little bit of compassion, and that they're trying their best to get you past or over that hump. No matter how much of a jerk you think they are, it's not the case. More than likely it's not the case. And they will keep trying, and they'll keep pushing, and they're trying to train you to that point where you can do it on your own now. You don't need them anymore. And that's what I understood. I was like, wow. Because there was times where I was in those matches where I'm like, you hear Sergio's voice, and I'm like, well, he's not coaching me right now, so I'm hearing him in my head, even though he's talking to me right now and he's coaching me. I'm like, wow, he's trained it into my brain. And then it starts to become my voice telling myself what to do. And then eventually I just don't need to hear myself anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think that he's brought some great leadership to the table on that. I think that what you're talking about there, I think as a coach, my best coaches were my very hard-nosed coaches. But on the same token, I didn't really have a coach that took a vested interest in me, like I would have liked to. You know what I mean? They were good coaches, but there weren't like a very vested interest in me. I was kind of if I was in junior high and I played basketball, I wasn't a starter. I was like 6th and 7th, right? They'd put me in for, for that. So I played football, and I started, but I wasn't one of the boys, that they're going to take under their wings. And I remember talking to John Wooden about this, when we gave him that black belt that day, and I got to sit down and talk to him for a while. We were sitting at a table together. It was just me and Kenny and him and a couple other people. And just when you listen to him speak about players, I tell everybody the story too. I asked him about people that have natural talent. How do you deal with those? Because I have that here, and people with natural talent have so much excuses that I just I can't stand it after a while. I saw it in the matches. Even there, I have a student that has a lot of natural talent, and his deal was, I lost because maybe I got to go look for something else now. Maybe I don't have the answer here. And the answer is not looking to be a gym rat at every other place that there is. It's, are you doing everything in your gym that you possibly can to train for what you want?
Yep.
And the answer 99.9% of the time is no, I'm not. I'm not fully committed. I'm half-ass committed. I'm looking for what the coach is doing wrong, coaching me, not what I'm doing wrong to further me going. And this is where now I've been doing this for over 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen me kind of get more hardcore over the time. I mean, there was a time that this stuff would eat me alive. I would lay in bed thinking about how is this black belt just quitting at this point? And where did I fail this guy in that he doesn't understand what's coming next? I just didn't,
Yeah.
And it's I'm to the point now, like, you want to make excuses, go somewhere else. I really don't need you as a black belt. I'm here now. My time here is a lot shorter. I'm on the back end. I'm not on the front end. I'm going to spend my time with those that want to further and get themselves onto the next. I don't. I've set the course. I'm not a leader that doesn't sit there and train. You know what I mean? I've set the bar for myself, and you're going to follow along. You can't give me excuses. You can't say, "Oh, well, you don't, Mr. Cox don't train or he doesn't do this," because I do. And so I think that was another thing in this in this whole battle that you had, because I knew how bad you wanted this. People may not know. I mean, it was you and I weren't as tight as we were in the beginning. You had to earn that from me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I remember, man, I've poured myself out to so many people and just gotten burned, bro. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, I do little things and little things here and till I figured out that, hey, this guy wants this more than I want it for him. So now I'm going to pour myself into him. I remember us having that conversation. I said, your school's going to be in the black in the first year. I said, I'm going to show you how to do that. If you follow what I say, it's going to happen. I remember telling Brandon Cameron the same thing. I said, I'm going to help you with this, but you're going to have to do this, this, and this. You do this, this, and this, and then you're going to get the next piece of the puzzle. Boom, boom, boom. And so, yeah, that's been, I think that mindset that you had is what was heal you. Now, here's everybody knows, right? We were just grappling. What was it, 2 weeks ago? And it was a pretty hardcore one, right? And your skin started getting red, and we were talking about it, going, "Oh man, what the shit?"
Yeah,
right? Remember?
Yep.
And I was like, ugh. And I'm thinking, go home and shower, do something, right? Or shower here, or do what you're going to have to do, so that we know that, I can't afford you to get sick again when you just came back training. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so. So there's, I guess that's the thing, right, John, to tell your students or those that are struggling. I mean, you heard Donna's story too last week. Like, I'm listening to her going, she's fighting death. And today I can see on here on people who's listening and who's liking things, there's Woody Whites on here too. I don't know if you've ever met Woody.
Okay? I haven't met him, but I see his Facebook posts.
But you see who he is, right? So he's one of Bo's black belts, right?
Yep.
This dude's a freaking this guy's a warrior too. Right. Yep. And God gave him a serious test. And I've watched him grow closer to the Lord as he's gone through this thing, because God just continues to heal. And the healing process sucks, bro. Okay. And, I've done some private messages to Woody, and I'm like, hey, man. And, what's the news? Because we're here, we're pulling for you. He's kind of on a prayer chart that I have. And so there's all these people around here that these awesome stories, or Donna having Rich. Did you listen to the one with Rich? Okay. The Rich Heritage, when his injuries, I mean, he wasn't even supposed to walk. Okay. And we're doing private Krav Maga tests for him.
Yeah.
And listen. Yeah. And every one of these, man, this mindset. You wait till next week when we have the triple amputee that is going to be when Ryan comes on next week. We got another Ranger coming on next week for my podcast. That's another one blown up in combat.
Yep.
Okay.
We
had Ryan hanging up like a piñata at the studio, right? Trying to figure out how do we get him, because he has one good arm still.
Right.
And he's just a freaking beast, right? He's just I don't know, this mindset of what a human being can do when pushed. And so I just wanted, that was the hour I wanted to take, because I think it was a time for you to let people know that because everybody, every time you're there, I mean, it was great seeing you at testing, right? Because you, I think you missed a testing. I think we had to test some of your students out for you,
Yeah.
right? And I remember telling your students, and I remember your students coming to me, you think Mr. John's going to be okay? I
Yeah.
said, well, what do you think? You think Mr. John's going to be okay? You know how he is. What do you think?
Stubborn.
Right?
Yeah.
And they would go, well, yeah. And I said, well, I said, I said, I said, good vibes and positive energy is not what makes John well. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you right now, solid prayer to God and his mindset is what's making him want it. So you guys,
Yeah.
when you guys are thinking about John, you think about his mindset and how he's going to get past this. And if you are, that John's a Christian, if you pray, when you pray the prayer that you continue letting John have the mindset of getting well as God heals him through this. And that's what I told many of your students that, because they would ask me, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I just saw him. I said, he looks, he looks like a mummy, but I said, he's certainly got thumbs up and he's ready to rock and roll. I mean, the times that I saw you there in the burn center, I don't know when I was like, the first time I'm like, man, how much thick is this shit he has on him, right? Because it was like a plaster of Paris on you, dude. I'm like, how is that comfortable? Or maybe it is comfortable, or how hot are you in that freaking thing? That was
It
the
was
main
warm.
thing,
It was
right?
warm. Yeah, and they have to keep you warm in the burn center because, there's a lack of skin. There's a lack of, you're down to like the subdermal layers or, right above the muscle tissue, and so they have to keep you warm. I remember being sweaty sometimes. I was like, "What? Why are these pillows all wet?" I'm like,
It
"Oh
was
man!" I thought I was like, "Did I lose control?" I was like, "Am I sweat?"
right.
And
Well, the time I was the time I was there for you, the only way we could talk, maybe people don't even know about this, but John, you went, hey man, get the ice chips and feed them to me, right? And I
and
would
he
feed
did.
you ice so that you could say a sentence,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'd feed you ice and then you would talk. And I think we made fun of Rod or something there, and we made fun of Z and Joe, because if you can't laugh, you can't heal. You know what I
That's right.
mean? I mean,
Yeah.
it's something has to just be real at that point. You know what I mean? So I remember feeding you ice chips and there was times too. I remember I was there when you were sleeping too, and I'd have your hand, and I said, "Hey man," I said, "I know when you're tired in your own thoughts, man, but you got to be,
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to work out with, so I have Dickie. That ain't what I need, bro. Okay, and so Dickie's a little dude, you know what I mean? So, I said you got to get well, and I remember, I think I told you this before too. I wanted this organization that comes together for people because I already knew you had Marine brothers that were going to come together for
Mm-hmm.
you. And then we're going to have this AKMF studio. And that I said, this is the organization I want, where we are a cohesive unit. And when somebody's down, that we should be able to pull from each other to, lift each other up and make sure. And it was great. It was great. Raising the money was great, but it's the camaraderie of everybody pulling, right? It was not a thought
100%.
process. It was, hey, they need this. I think Jason Flame came down. I
He
think
did.
Robbie came down.
He
Patrick
did.
Prager came down.
Yeah.
Patrick came and he's not even AKMF school. Doesn't even
That
do Krav Maga.
Yeah,
Okay.
and exactly.
So
That's how tight it is. But again, he's one of your black belts,
right.
There's something there.
Yeah. This is I told you guys this when the AKMF, when I really wanted something more, is when I saw how they treated my nephew. That was 3 years ago this month, watching my nephew die and what those firemen did. I cannot get it through my head. I've told everybody this story probably a million times, but I can't get through my head that there were firefighters that would work his shift so that he can get a paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of thing, right? I'm going to go work a 12-hour shift, put my life on the line for these next 12 hours. make sure that goes on Cody's books, and Cody gets paid from the 12 hours that I worked.
Yep.
I just that was really that was something life changing in me, and said, why are we not like this? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the martial arts community is not as like that like you think. In the karate world, especially, we support each other for a tournament here or there or here or there.
Mhm.
But I've even seen very famous martial artists that are really old now,
Mhm.
and people they're by the wayside at this point, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
we are not this unit. Samurais were like that, man. They'd come together.
Yep.
Why are we not? Why are we not doing this? And even in our American Tong Soo, we were not we're just not a we're a tight group as far as, hey, we're part of this and we're under Mr. Chikawa, and we want to make his legacy go through. We're tight that way. But it's not if Mr. Chikawa needed something, we would all come together for him. But it's not like as tight as what we have in the Krav community. And I don't know what it is, what the difference is, but even there's a connection even out in Georgia,
Mhm.
and now Virginia, and we want this whole thing to be a solid unit. And I think your story helps with that. So when people can see what you did, I think that's what I'm talking about. Why did John go through all the stuff that John went through? And part of it is, wow, look at what these guys did. Look at how they came together for him,
Yep.
him and his wife. And how did it make us feel to come together? I mean, that you're receiving things, but so are we. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Mhm.
So are we. When you get to do service for somebody else, it's strictly service. There's no compensation. There's no reason for it whatsoever outside of, hey, we're going to invest in people's life, and then you have a student base that stayed right there with it and took
Yeah.
all of our instruction. You know, and
Yep.
and holding that thing together. So I think it's probably a good place to end. I'll let you end it out with the thought process on that, and where your students are now, and how they are together. What's changed in your school since that? Do you have a tighter group in school? Why don't you talk about that, and we'll end it out that way.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out and helped teach at my, instruct my classes when I wasn't there. Thank those who donated, because there were some things that I needed after I got out of the hospital, like the skincare cream, like I forget what they call it, but I need it. Those are expensive. They were like $130 a bottle. I'm like, really? Um, there was a lot of things that I needed. So I want to say thank you to everybody. Give Send Go was awesome. They even sent that one of the case managers of the campaign called and she was like, "Can I just pray for you?" I was like, "This is an amazing and it's just an awesome organization. So if you guys ever need anything as far as like a donation campaign, I'd recommend Give Send Go. I think that's what you
They're
guys
so
use.
much better than GoFundMe, bro.
So much better. And even if you're even if you're not a Christian, that's what we do as Christians. Is it doesn't matter. We'll help you regardless. And that's the same thing with the AKMF. But as far as the school goes, definitely got a tighter group. The best thing that came out of this, as far as that goes, is the leadership development in my instructors and letting them get a hold of it. A lot of times as a leader, you're kind of like, I'm a guy who likes things run a specific way, and I want to replicate. And you told it to me before. You're like, man, I need to replicate myself. And I'm like, yeah, I need to replicate myself. And it's kind of like, how do I do that without letting them get their feet wet? And they got thrown into the fire, and I got to see some leadership development in each instructor, and then they came back to me with feedback of like what they needed to work on or how things went. And it gave me a better idea of where I was in my school, what I need to work on as a leader, what I need to work on and leadership development and instruction and how I'm doing replicating myself. So it's a good uh, like benchmark, you know, and it's not like well, this did well, this didn't do well, blah blah. It's like, great, this is where I'm at, in my skills and my leadership. So this is what I need to, maybe this side was lacking a little bit. Okay, cool. So I need to go ahead and raise the bar. And the the student base is amazing. I cannot teach without students. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they were still in the game, the fact that they were fighting, and maybe the time in the hospital is something that they use as fuel. Like, hey, if he's going through this stuff, then I can go through worse, whatever the case is, you know. And then even after that, coming back after that, after the new year, seeing people wanting to come back, but they're still not sure with the coming off New Year pandemic. I was in the hospital. I just came back out. I'm not instructing yet, and so they held on tight. And so I got to see um, how long my school could go without me, and I'm like, not because I want to take vacations or anything like that, but again, if something happened to me, will the school still be there? Will it still operate? Will the legacy be there? And I'm like, and it tells me, I do have some work to do. So I'm just really happy that the school didn't like burn down and crash, you know what I mean? And so with all the help of the organization, with the help of the students together, as a community, I think I was talking to you about that. I was a visiting food dog from the Dog Brothers, and he said the school needs two things to run, and it's culture and community. And I think we've established that very well at AKMF, and it's only getting better. And so I think that's the big difference between us and other organizations in terms of martial arts. We do it really well, and
Yeah,
it's trickled down.
I think you're right, and that's a that's a high five to each of the studio owners, because the owners have to want to do that. Whether it's um, Jay or Jay Walker and Jason Flame and Robbie and Carson and all the ones that everybody knows, right? The guys that this comes together, and we get to see the growth of everybody else. And then this team 3 comes along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which puts another edge and another another layer of leadership from this instructor, right? Is like,
Yeah.
And so we've taken kind of what we've done AKMF, right? And we're replicating it right now to team 3. We're replicating it out in Georgia and replicating it out here in the West. So we got the East and West Coast.
Yep.
That is this new thing that is going to even polish our Krav Maga students even more, because I've learned so much from him as far as what is working well and some of the stuff that we've done even in Krav, going, now that we have experience. And can you imagine having somebody with experience on the ground and we're not addressing some of this stuff?
Yep.
Right. You know what I mean? And I
Yep.
think we did a little bit of that even in testing this past week,
Mm-hmm.
this past weekend. Just so you know, we had 71 people test this past weekend.
Man, that is
in
awesome.
The AKMF schools. All the AKMF schools that came together here on the West Coast. 71 people, 40, I think 44 or something like that, and then 27 in the next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So 71 people came through. And once again, we always learn something new with all this kind of stuff anyway. But we are already 18 minutes over. So I think, but it was good. So everybody can hear about this, John. I'll have this on audio before day's end, and then your folks and stuff out in Florida or wherever can jump on and rehash this through. Some of your students will put it on their page so that they can listen to it while they're driving. It'll be in an audio podcast from there. Here's Carlin. Carlin's on here. Listen, he said there was 44 in the morning and 29 in the afternoon. That's how many people we had.
It's amazing.
I mean, right?
It is.
I was like, wow, man, that's a lot of people. No wonder we have to keep the bathroom clean. Because
yeah.
So it was just to know that many people, how many lives we've touched and how it spiders out, and the stories that were being told inside there. People that day trying to overcome weight loss and trying to get through something when they're heavy, and knee injuries over here, or being attacked and being trying to be vulnerable, and me having a conversation. I won't say with who, but not testing and saying I'm here because uh, they're suffering super anxiety when they test. I mean, think about that. After the test, they have super anxiety, even and bringing it home. And now they're
Mhm.
trying to process this. How do I process my anxiety from this Krav Maga testing? Right? Everybody's
Right.
fighting something, man.
Yep.
Everybody.
Everybody.
You know what I mean? It's such a hodgepodge of all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, man. We're glad you're on our team, though. We're glad you're healthy and you're coming back and back on the mat and training, and your students are out there doing their thing. It was good to see a good amount of them coming out for their own test.
Yes,
You've got
sir.
higher ranks now. I mean, you're going to have black belts here within the next year or so, right? I would imagine,
Yeah.
correct?
God willing.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we had another black belt that came and watched the students. What was his feedback? Did you get to talk to him at all before he left?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a
Good.
GPD, so he's out in
Yeah.
Glendale. But yeah. Good
Yeah,
guy.
we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. And so it's always good to see how we're measured against other people from other organizations and what that looks like. And that all has to do with you guys and the leadership in your own school and the loyalty you have to, just not myself, but just to the organization in general, as we try to take it to the next level. Same thing we're going to do with Sergio, and take this Team 3 to the next level. It is what it is. We had a great showing for Team 3, right? In our very first tournament,
Sure.
where we bring a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
and we come in 5th.
Yep.
That's a statement for sure. You know what I mean? So
Yes, sir.
we take those same principles and we move on. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate the hour, John. You guys, you can see on the bottom here, you guys can find me all on here. My webpage is markcox.com. You'll see every episode that I've done so far on there. That I have my Instagram. If you guys, some of you guys, hey, you know what? Ventura, if you look on here, it says support. It says www.buymeacoffee.com. Oh, look at little Giselle.
That's her.
This buymeacoffee.com /Mark Cox podcast. This is the way to support the podcast if you'd like. And somebody from Ventura, it was one of the girls from Ventura. She goes, she bought me 5 cups of coffee there last night. So that's and that's a way that you support the thing. So buy me a coffee is what it's called, but it's a way that you can support the podcast. So, I'm trying to upgrade some of my equipment and stuff like that. So that's where that's at, and that's what that support is down there. But I wanted to thank her personally for doing that for me. I just got that thing last night, and I said, I guess I should see, it's right there. It says support. I said I'm going to put that up there, and
right.
if you guys, anybody is interested in doing that, you guys, I'd appreciate it. All right, John.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Sounds
we'll
good,
let
sir.
you go.
Thank you.
All right, man. Bye.